heard my boyfriend's name on a true crime podcast. He's a wanted criminal, and he's in my living room.
Sarah Mitchell was folding laundry when she heard her boyfriend's name on a true crime podcast. Not a similar name. His exact name, Michael Anderson. And when they showed the suspect's photo, it was his face staring back at her from her phone screen. The man she'd been dating for 8 months. The man she'd introduced to her 7-year-old daughter. The man she'd given $45,000 to 3 weeks ago. He was a wanted criminal. A con artist who'd been running the same scam for years. And he was in her living room right now, watching TV, completely unaware that his past had just caught up with him. But before we tell you what Sarah did in that moment, and trust me, her revenge is absolutely perfect, you need to do something. Hit that subscribe button right now because this story has twists you won't see coming. Smash that like button if you've ever trusted the wrong person. And drop a comment. What would you do if you discovered your partner was a wanted criminal? Because Sarah made a choice that night that destroyed him completely. Let's go back to the beginning. 9 months earlier, when Sarah matched with a stranger on a dating app who would try to ruin her life. Sarah Mitchell hadn't been looking for love. At 32, she was focused on one thing: raising her 7-year-old daughter Emma as a single mom. Her ex-husband had left when Emma was 4, and Sarah had spent the last 3 years building a stable, safe life for the two of them. She worked as an accountant at a mid-sized firm in Denver. She had her routine down: work, school pickup, dinner, bedtime stories, repeat. It wasn't exciting, but it was secure. And security was what mattered when you had a child depending on you. Her sister Rachel had other ideas. You need to get back out there, Rachel insisted over coffee one Saturday morning while Emma played at the park. Emma needs to see her mom happy. You need someone in your life. I am happy, Sarah protested. I don't need a man to complete me. I'm not saying you need one to complete you. I'm saying you deserve companionship, romance, someone to share your life with. Rachel pulled out her phone. Just download the app. Try it for a month. What's the worst that could happen? Famous last words. Sarah created a profile that night after Emma went to bed. Nothing fancy. A few recent photos. A short bio mentioning she was a single mom who valued honesty and family. She swiped through profiles half-heartedly for 2 weeks, went on 2 forgettable coffee dates, and was ready to delete the whole thing. Then she matched with Michael Anderson. His profile was perfect. Too perfect, though Sarah didn't recognize that red flag at the time. 35 years old, business consultant, recently relocated to Denver from Chicago. His photos showed him hiking, at charity events, volunteering at a food bank. His bio emphasized family values, honesty, and authentic connection. Their first message exchange lasted 3 hours. He was charming, asked thoughtful questions about Emma without being pushy, shared stories about his own childhood with a single mother. He made Sarah laugh. He made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in years. They met for coffee the following weekend. Michael arrived exactly on time with sunflowers, Sarah's favorite flower, which she'd mentioned once in their texts. He was dressed casually but put together, warm but not overwhelming. I was nervous about meeting you, he admitted with a self-deprecating smile. It's been a while since I've done this. Me too, Sarah said, relaxing slightly. They talked for 3 hours. He asked about her work, her daughter, her dreams. He shared about his consulting business, helping small companies improve their operations. He was attentive, interested, genuine. Or so it seemed. Over the next 2 months, Michael became a regular part of Sarah's life. They had dinner dates when Emma was with her father. They went hiking on weekends. He texted good morning and good night consistently. He never pushed for too much too fast. Sarah was cautious about introducing him to Emma. She'd made that mistake before and watched her daughter get attached to someone who left. But Michael was patient, understanding, never pressured her. When they finally met after 2 months of dating, Michael brought Emma an expensive art set, thoughtful, perfect for a creative 7-year-old. He asked her about school, her drawings, her favorite books. He didn't try too hard. He just fit. Emma liked him. Sarah's family liked him. Her friends thought she'd finally found one of the good ones. By month 4, Michael had a key to Sarah's apartment. He stayed over a few nights a week. He'd cook dinner, help Emma with homework, fit seamlessly into their routine. By month 6, he told Sarah he loved her, that he wanted a future with them, that Emma felt like the daughter he'd always wanted, that Sarah was the partner he'd been searching for his whole life. Sarah believed every word. She was falling in love with him too. By month 7, Michael started talking about money. It began small. A client had been late paying an invoice. Could Sarah spot him $300 for rent? She did. His car needed urgent repairs. Could she loan him $800? She did. His business account had a temporary bank hold. Could she cover his utilities? She did. He always paid her back within a week, always with apologies and gratitude and promises that things were stabilizing. Sarah didn't see the pattern forming, didn't recognize the classic con artist technique. Small loans, always repaid, building trust for the big score. Month 8. 3 weeks before everything exploded, Michael came to Sarah one evening after Emma was asleep, his expression serious. "I need to ask you something, and I completely understand if you say no," he started, sitting across from her at the kitchen table. Sarah's stomach tightened. She knew what was coming. "One of my biggest clients wants to expand their contract, but they need me to bring on 2 additional consultants to handle the increased workload. It's a $200,000 annual contract, life-changing money, but I need $45,000 upfront to hire staff and get infrastructure in place." $45,000. Sarah's entire savings, money she'd been setting aside for Emma's future, for emergencies, for security. "Michael, that's everything I have," she said carefully. "I know." He reached across the table, took her hands. "And I wouldn't ask if there was any other option. But Sarah, this contract would change everything for us, for our future together. I'm not asking for a gift, I'm asking for a short-term business loan. 2 months maximum, I'll have your money back with interest. And once this is secured, we can start planning our life properly, maybe get a bigger place with a yard for Emma." He painted a picture. Their future, Emma's future, a family, a future that required Sarah's money to become real. Every instinct screamed at Sarah to say no, but she was in love. She trusted him, and she wanted that future. She transferred $45,000 to his business account. Michael held her that night, whispered promises about their future, about being the man she and Emma deserved. 3 weeks later, Sarah was folding laundry with a true crime podcast playing in her earbuds, and she heard his name. Her first instinct was to call the police immediately, but her hands hovered over her phone as logic cut through panic. If she called the police now, Michael would hear. He'd run. And based on the podcast, he'd been successfully running for years. He knew how to disappear. He'd done it 12 times before. No, Sarah needed to be smarter than that. She needed evidence. She needed to trap him so thoroughly he couldn't run this time. She took a deep, steadying breath, schooled her expression into something normal, picked up the laundry basket and walked into the living room. "Hey babe," Michael said without looking away from the screen. "How was your day?" Sarah looked at him, really looked at him, and saw him clearly for the first time. The charm was a weapon. The attentiveness was surveillance. The love was performance. "Fine," she said, her voice somehow steady. "Busy. I'm exhausted." She sat down on the couch next to the man who'd been planning to rob her and vanish. The man who'd used her daughter to manipulate her. The man whose real name probably wasn't even Michael Anderson. "Want me to order dinner?" he asked, finally glancing at her with those concerned, caring eyes that she now recognized as completely calculated. "That would be great," Sarah said, smiling. "Thank you." He kissed her forehead, a gesture that had once felt loving and now felt like contamination, and pulled out his phone to browse restaurants. The moment his attention was on the screen, Sarah discreetly opened her phone's voice memo app and pressed record. Then she slid the phone between the couch cushions, microphone facing out. She was going to get everything. Every word. Every lie. Every piece of evidence she needed to make sure he never did this to anyone else. But first, she needed to make sure he didn't run. And before we continue with what Sarah did next, I have to pause and ask you something. If you just discovered the person you trusted most was a wanted criminal, right there in your house, what would you do? Call the police immediately? Confront them? Or do what Sarah did and start gathering evidence? Drop your answer in the comments. And make sure you're subscribed because what Sarah does over the next 48 hours is absolutely brilliant. Hit that like button if you think she's about to get the revenge he deserves. Now let's get back to the story. That night, after Michael fell asleep in Sarah's bed, she locked herself in the bathroom with her laptop and spent 3 hours researching everything she could find. She started with the podcast episode, which linked to news articles from 2019. There were photos from multiple angles: Michael at ATMs, at banks, having dinner with different women who all looked heartbreakingly similar to Sarah. Single, professional, trusting. She found a victim support forum. 12 women had come forward publicly. Their stories were identical to hers, down to disturbing details. Jennifer from Illinois, $60,000, promised business expansion. He disappeared while she was visiting her sick mother. Patricia from Arizona, $38,000, told her his mother needed emergency surgery, vanished the day after she transferred the money. Rebecca from Colorado, $72,000 from her retirement account, promised investment opportunity with guaranteed returns, gone within a week. None of them had recovered their money. None had seen him face consequences. He'd just evaporated. Until now. Sarah screenshot every article, every photo, every piece of evidence. She downloaded the podcast episode. She documented the timeline of her own relationship with meticulous detail. Every date, every loan, every promise. Then she did something the other victims hadn't been able to do. She went through Michael's belongings while he slept. His wallet was on the nightstand. Sarah's hands shook as she photographed his driver's license, his credit cards, his insurance cards. The license looked legitimate, but Sarah noticed something. The issue date was only 2 years old. For a 35-year-old man, that was unusual unless he'd lost his license or moved states recently. She checked his phone next. Risky, but necessary. He'd never hidden his passcode from her, another manipulation tactic disguised as trust. She opened his messages. There were texts from multiple women, all saved under male names: Dave, Tom, Rick, but the conversations were clearly romantic. Pet names, heart emojis, planning future meetings. One message thread with Rick was actually a woman named Amanda in Seattle. I miss you so much. Only 3 more weeks until you're back. Another with Dave was from Lisa in Portland. Did you get the loan approved? I'm so proud of you for expanding your business. Sarah's stomach turned. She wasn't the only one. He was running cons on at least 3 other women simultaneously. She photographed everything. Every message. Every contact. Every piece of evidence of his systematic fraud. Then she found something that made her blood run cold. In his Notes app, hidden in a folder labeled Client List, was a spreadsheet. Names, cities, dates, amounts. It was a ledger of his crimes. Sarah's name was there. Sarah M. Denver, 45K. Received 1015. Exit window 11/5-11/10. Exit window. He'd already planned when he was going to disappear. It was scheduled for next week, right when Emma would be with her father for a long weekend and Sarah would be attending a work conference out of state. He'd planned this down to the day, but there were other names on that list. Women whose exit windows were still approaching. Amanda in Seattle, 50K target, approach date 11/20. Lisa in Portland, 38K target, exit window 12/1. Sarah photographed the entire spreadsheet with shaking hands. Then she carefully put everything back exactly as she'd found it. She returned to the bathroom, closed the door, and sent everything to 3 places. Her personal email, a cloud storage account Michael didn't know about, and her sister Rachel. Then she sent Rachel a text. Don't respond to this. I just sent you files. If anything happens to me, give them to police. We'll explain tomorrow. I'm safe right now. Don't call. Sarah looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. She looked pale, exhausted, terrified. But underneath the fear, something else was building. Rage. This man had used her daughter, had manipulated her grief over her divorce, had stolen money she'd saved through years of sacrifice, had planned to disappear and leave her financially devastated, blaming herself, never knowing the truth. And he was doing it to other women right now. Women who thought they'd finally found someone trustworthy. Women who were about to lose everything. Not anymore. Sarah wasn't going to be another name on his victim list. She wasn't going to let him disappear into the night. She was going to make sure Michael Anderson, or whatever his real name was, faced every single consequence he'd been avoiding for years. But to do that, she needed him to think everything was normal. She needed him to believe he was still in control. She needed to be a better actor than he was. Sarah flushed the toilet for cover, washed her hands, and returned to bed. She slid in next to the man who was planning to rob her in 7 days. He stirred slightly, reached for her sleepily, pulled her close. Love you, he mumbled. Sarah closed her eyes and whispered back, love you too. The lie tasted like poison, but it was necessary, because tomorrow, she was going to start building the trap that would destroy him. The next morning, Sarah woke up before Michael and made breakfast like she did every Wednesday. Pancakes, coffee, orange juice. Normal routine. Normal Sarah. Except nothing was normal anymore. "You're up early," Michael said, appearing in the kitchen doorway in his pajamas, hair messy, smile warm. The perfect boyfriend. "Couldn't sleep," Sarah said truthfully. "Work stress. Want to talk about it?" he asked, kissing her cheek as he poured coffee. Such a caring partner. Such an attentive fraud. "Just quarterly reviews coming up," Sarah lied smoothly. "You know how it is." They ate breakfast together. They talked about their days ahead. Michael mentioned he had client meetings all afternoon. Sarah said she had to work late. All lies from both of them, but only Sarah knew it. After Michael left for his office, Sarah now suspected he didn't have an actual office, just coffee shops and libraries where he maintained his cons. Sarah called in sick to work. Then she called Detective James Morrison at Denver PD. She'd found his name in the news articles from the 2019 case. He'd been the investigating officer who'd tried to track Michael down back then. He'd failed, but maybe with Sarah's evidence, he'd get another chance. "Detective Morrison," a gruff voice answered. "Detective, my name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm calling about the Michael Anderson fraud case from 2019. Silence. "Then, that case went cold years ago. If you have information." "I'm dating him," Sarah interrupted. "Or the man who was using that identity. He's been dating me for 8 months. He took $45,000 from me 3 weeks ago. And he's planning to disappear next week." More silence. "Then, where are you right now?" "Home. He thinks I'm at work." "Detective, I have evidence. Photos. Messages. A spreadsheet where he tracks his victims. Names of women he's targeting right now in other cities. Everything." "Miss Mitchell, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Do not confront him. Do not let him know you suspect anything. Can you come to the station? I can be there in 30 minutes. I'll be waiting." Sarah drove to the police station with her laptop, phone, and every piece of evidence she'd gathered. Detective Morrison was older than she'd expected, maybe late 50s, with tired eyes that had seen too much. "Show me everything," he said, leading her to an interview room. Sarah laid it all out. The timeline of their relationship, the escalating loan requests, the podcast she'd heard, the victim forum she'd found, the photos from his phone, the text messages with other women, and most damning, the spreadsheet. Detective Morrison's expression darkened as he reviewed the evidence. "This is more than we had in 2019, he said quietly. "Back then, victims came forward after he'd disappeared. We had nothing concrete to hold him on even if we'd found him. But this," he tapped the spreadsheet on Sarah's laptop, "this is conspiracy to commit fraud. Intent, planning. This puts him away." "There are other women on that list," Sarah said. "Women he's targeting right now. We can't just arrest him. They'll lose their money and he'll just claim they were gifts. We need to catch him in the act." Detective Morrison studied her carefully. "What are you suggesting?" Sarah took a deep breath. "He thinks he's disappearing with my money next week. What if we let him think that? What if we catch him trying to leave, with evidence linking him to all his victims?" "You want to work with us," Morrison said, "as a cooperating witness." "I want to be bait," Sarah corrected. "He's comfortable around me. He thinks I'm clueless. We use that." "Miss Mitchell, that could be dangerous. If he suspects." "He won't," Sarah insisted. "I've been acting normal for 18 hours. He has no idea I know anything. I can keep it up for 1 more week." Morrison considered this. Then he picked up his phone. "Let me talk to my lieutenant." 3 hours later, Sarah left the police station with a plan. She would continue her normal routine. Continue acting like the trusting girlfriend. The police would monitor her phone, her home, her movements. They'd document every interaction with Michael, building a timeline and evidence chain. Meanwhile, they'd contact the other women on Michael's target list: Amanda in Seattle, Lisa in Portland, 3 others in various cities. Warn them. Save them from becoming victims. And when Michael made his move to disappear, when he thought Sarah was safely out of town at her conference, the police would be waiting. Sarah drove home feeling something she hadn't felt in 24 hours: hope. When she walked into her apartment, Michael was there, unexpected, since he'd said he had meetings all day. "You're home early," he said, hugging her. "How was work?" Sarah's heart pounded, but her smile didn't falter. "Slow day. They let me leave early." "How were your meetings?" "Productive," he said easily. The lie rolled off his tongue like truth. Actually, I have good news. That big contract I mentioned, it's moving forward even faster than I thought. I should have your money back to you by next week. Next week, right before he planned to disappear. That's amazing. Sarah forced enthusiasm into her voice. I knew it would work out. He kissed her, and Sarah made herself kiss back. Made herself pretend that his touch didn't make her skin crawl. I was thinking, Michael said, pulling back slightly. We should celebrate. Maybe take Emma somewhere special this weekend? I want to spend time with my girls before this project really ramps up. My girls? As if Emma was his. As if Sarah was his. As if any of this was real. She'd love that, Sarah said. She's been asking about going to the zoo. Zoo it is, Michael agreed, smiling that warm, genuine-seeming smile that had fooled Sarah for 8 months. But it wasn't fooling her anymore. The next 7 days were the longest of Sarah's life. She had to act normal, had to pretend everything was fine, had to let Michael cook dinner in her kitchen, sleep in her bed, play with her daughter, all while knowing exactly what he was planning. The police monitored everything. They'd installed recording devices in Sarah's apartment, with her consent, and tracked Michael's movements. Detective Morrison checked in daily via text, using a fake name in Sarah's phone, Carol from work, in case Michael looked. Meanwhile, the police contacted the other women on Michael's list. Amanda in Seattle was devastated but grateful. She'd been planning to give Michael $50,000 the following month. Police intervention saved her. Lisa in Portland was harder to convince. She was deeply in love, insisted Michael was legitimate. But when police showed her Sarah's evidence, the spreadsheet with her name and target amount, reality shattered her denial. 3 other women in different cities, all at various stages of Michael's con, all saved before they lost everything. But saving future victims wasn't enough. Sarah wanted justice for past victims too. Detective Morrison contacted the 12 women from 2019. Most had given up hope of ever seeing their money or their scammer again. But when they learned he'd been caught, that there was finally a chance at prosecution, they all agreed to testify. The case against Michael Anderson, or whoever he really was growing stronger by the day. But Sarah still had to live with him, pretend to love him, let him touch her. It was destroying her. Are you okay? Rachel asked when she came to pick up Emma for school one morning. Michael was in the shower. You look exhausted. I'm fine, Sarah whispered. Just 1 more week. I don't like this, Rachel said, keeping her voice low. He's dangerous. What if he figures it out? He won't, Sarah insisted, though she wasn't entirely sure. He's too confident. He thinks he's already won. And Michael did seem relaxed, comfortable. He'd even started talking about their future again. After the contract wrapped up, he wanted to take Sarah and Emma on vacation. Maybe think about moving in together officially. All lies. All manipulation. But he delivered them with such convincing warmth that if Sarah hadn't known the truth, she would have believed every word. On Friday evening, 5 days before his planned exit, Michael took Sarah and Emma to the zoo as promised. It should have been fun. Emma was thrilled, running from exhibit to exhibit, pointing out animals, asking endless questions. Michael was attentive, playful, buying Emma stuffed animals and ice cream. To any observer, they looked like a happy family, a loving couple, a man who adored his girlfriend's daughter. Sarah took photos because that's what a normal girlfriend would do. She smiled because that's what he expected. She held his hand because maintaining the illusion meant everything. But inside, she was counting down the hours until this was over. That night, after Emma was asleep, Michael pulled Sarah close on the couch. I love our life, he said softly. I love you. I love Emma. I know I haven't been perfect, with the money stress and everything. But once this contract settles, everything's going to be different, better. Sarah looked at him, really looked at him, and wondered how many women he'd said these exact words to. How many had believed him? How many had their hearts broken along with their bank accounts? I love you too, she said, because she had to. He kissed her, and Sarah kissed back, tasting lies and manipulation and years of practiced deception. 4 more days, she told herself. Just 4 more days. Tuesday, the day Sarah was supposed to leave for her work conference. It was also the start of Michael's exit window. Sarah packed her suitcase that morning while Michael made breakfast. She was actually going to the conference. Or at least, she was going to the airport and checking into the hotel where the conference was being held. But Detective Morrison and 2 other officers would be watching her apartment around the clock. "I'm going to miss you," Michael said, wrapping his arms around her from behind as she folded clothes. "It's only 3 days," Sarah said, though her heart was pounding. "I know. But still." He kissed her neck. "Emma's with your sister this weekend?" "Yeah. Rachel's taking her to her cabin. She's really excited." "Good. She deserves fun." He paused. "Hey, actually, I might head to Chicago while you're gone. That client wants to meet in person to finalize the contract. Would probably be Thursday and Friday." There it was. The setup for his disappearance set Chicago. He'd tell Sarah he was going to Chicago for business. In reality, he'd be cleaning out any remaining money he could access, grabbing whatever valuables were worth taking, and vanishing before Sarah returned. "That's great." Sarah forced enthusiasm she didn't feel. "So we'll both be traveling. Guess I'll see you when I'm back Sunday?" "Definitely. I'll probably beat you home, actually. Meeting shouldn't take that long." Lies. Sarah left for the airport Tuesday afternoon. Michael drove her, insisted on walking her to security, kissed her goodbye with perfect boyfriend concern. "Text me when you land," he said. "I will. Love you." "Love you too." Sarah walked through security, turned back to wave, watched Michael wave back with that warm, genuine-seeming smile. Then he turned and walked away, and Sarah immediately texted Detective Morrison. "He's moving." "I'm through security." She didn't actually get on her flight. Instead, she went to a hotel room the police had arranged near the airport, close enough to respond if needed, far enough to maintain the illusion she was out of state. From there, she waited. Michael returned to Sarah's apartment at 4 p.m. The surveillance equipment captured everything. He moved through the apartment methodically, professionally. This wasn't his first time. First, he went through Sarah's desk drawers, finding and photographing her banking information, credit card statements, any documents that might have residual value. Then he went to her jewelry box, took the few valuable pieces she owned. Nothing Emma would miss, nothing obvious, but enough to fence for a few $1,000s. He packed a bag with his belongings. Not everything, just enough to travel light. He'd buy new things with Sarah's money. He always did. Then he sat at Sarah's kitchen table and made phone calls. The police were recording every word. "Hey, it's me," Michael said into the phone. "Yeah. Denver's wrapped. She's at her conference. Kid's gone for the weekend. I'm clear to move." Pause. 45 from this one. Should hit the account Thursday. Another pause. Seattle's on track for 50 next month. Portland's about 38 week after that. He was talking to an accomplice. Someone who helped him move money, helped him run cons in multiple cities simultaneously. Detective Morrison was in the surveillance van outside Sarah's building, listening to everything. This was even better than they'd hoped. Not just Michael, but his entire operation. "Yeah. New identities ready," Michael continued. "Colorado's done anyway. Too many close calls. Thinking Phoenix next. Better weather, better targets." He laughed at something the person said. "You know me, man. Single moms are the sweet spot. Desperate for stability, usually got savings for the kid. Always want to believe in love." His voice was casual, amused. "It's almost too easy." Sarah, listening to the live feed from her hotel room, felt ice flood her veins. Almost too easy. That's what she'd been to him. Easy. Wednesday morning, Michael was still in Sarah's apartment, waiting until Thursday to actually disappear. Playing it safe, maintaining the timeline. Detective Morrison made the call. "We have enough. We're moving in." Sarah drove back from her hotel at 6 a.m. Wednesday morning. She parked 2 blocks away and waited in an unmarked police car with Detective Morrison. "You don't have to be here for this," Morrison said. "We can handle the arrest." "I need to see it," Sarah said. "I need to see his face when he realizes he didn't get away with it." At 7 a.m., Michael left Sarah's apartment to get coffee, his routine. He walked 3 blocks to his usual cafe. He never made it inside. 4 plainclothes officers moved in simultaneously. 2 from behind, 2 cutting off his path forward. "Michael Anderson, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud, and identity theft." Sarah watched from the unmarked car as Michael's expression transformed. Confusion, realization, panic. He tried to run. They tackled him to the sidewalk. Handcuffs clicked into place. "You have the right to remain silent." Sarah got out of the car and walked closer. Michael was on his knees now, officers on either side of him. He looked up and saw her standing there. His face went through a series of expressions: shock, understanding, then rage. "You bitch," he spat. "You set me up." "No," Sarah said calmly, stopping a few feet away. "I caught you." "There's a difference." "This won't stick," Michael snarled. "You gave me that money willingly. You can't prove." "Actually, we can," Detective Morrison interrupted, stepping forward. "We have recordings of you planning to defraud multiple women. We have your spreadsheet listing victims and target amounts. We have 12 women from 2019 willing to testify. We have the women you were targeting now who you admitted to your accomplice you were conning." Michael's face drained of color. "We also have your real name," Morrison continued. "Marcus Allen Wheeler from Ohio. 3 prior fraud convictions under different identities. 2 outstanding warrants. And thanks to Ms. Mitchell's cooperation, we have your accomplice too. We arrested him in Chicago an hour ago." Michael, Marcus, looked at Sarah with pure hatred. "I loved you," he said. "Emma loved me. We could have been a family." Sarah stared at him. "You don't know what love is. You don't even know what your own name is." "Ms. Mitchell," one of the officers said, "we need to get him to the station." They hauled Marcus to his feet and guided him toward a police car. He was still looking back at Sarah, still trying to understand how his perfect con had fallen apart. Sarah stood on the sidewalk, watching them drive away with the man who'd tried to destroy her life. Her phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "Emma wants to know if Michael can come to the cabin this weekend." Sarah typed back, "Michael won't be around anymore. I'll explain when you're home. Tell Emma I love her." Then she walked back to Detective Morrison. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we build the case. You'll need to testify. So will the other victims." "But Miss Mitchell," Morrison smiled for the first time since she'd met him. "He's not walking away from this. Not this time." The trial took 8 months. Marcus Allen Wheeler, his real name, was charged with 17 counts of wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and money laundering. 12 victims from 2019. Sarah, Amanda from Seattle, Lisa from Portland. 2 other women who'd come forward after his arrest, women he'd conned years earlier who'd never reported it because they'd been too ashamed. All of them testified. Jennifer, who'd lost $60,000 in 2019, spoke about how the financial devastation had forced her to file bankruptcy, how she'd lost her house, how her relationship with her teenage son had suffered because she couldn't afford his college tuition. Patricia described the shame and isolation, how she'd felt too stupid to tell anyone she'd been scammed, how she'd withdrawn from friends and family, how she'd nearly taken her own life. Rebecca talked about losing her entire retirement account, having to work years past when she'd planned to retire, watching her golden years disappear because she'd trusted the wrong person. Sarah testified about the calculated way Marcus had used her daughter, how he'd built a relationship with Emma specifically to manipulate Sarah, how he'd timed his exit for when Emma would be gone so Sarah would be emotionally devastated and financially destroyed simultaneously. The prosecution presented Marcus's spreadsheet, his recordings discussing victims as targets, his systematic pattern of behavior spanning over a decade, his accomplice's testimony. He'd taken a plea deal and agreed to cooperate. Marcus's defense tried to argue that the money had been gifts, that the relationships were genuine, that he'd intended to pay everyone back. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge looked at Marcus with unconcealed disgust. "Mr. Wheeler, you have systematically destroyed the lives of vulnerable women for over a decade. You used their loneliness, their desire for partnership, their love for their children as weapons against them. You showed no remorse, no empathy, no recognition of the harm you caused." The judge sentenced him to 15 years in federal prison. No parole eligibility for 10 years. Full restitution to all victims, though most of the money was gone, spent long ago. Sarah sat in the courtroom gallery, watching Marcus being led away in shackles. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. The charm was gone, replaced by the reality of what he was, a predator who'd finally been caged. 6 months after the trial, Sarah's life had settled into something resembling normal. She'd recovered $32,000 of her $45,000 from seized assets and the liquidation of Marcus's belongings. Not everything, but enough to rebuild her savings. The other victims had formed a support group. They met monthly, sometimes in person, sometimes virtually, not to dwell on what happened, but to remind each other they'd survived. They'd been strong enough to testify, strong enough to ensure he'd never do this again. Sarah had started speaking publicly about her experience. Local news had interviewed her. A podcast had featured her story. She'd even been invited to speak at a fraud prevention seminar. How did you know something was wrong? Someone asked her during a Q&A. I didn't. For 8 months, Sarah admitted. He was perfect. Too perfect. But I got lucky. I happened to hear his name on a podcast. Most people aren't that lucky. What advice would you give to others? Another person asked. Sarah thought carefully. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, investigate. Don't ignore red flags because you want the relationship to work. And if you do get scammed, it's not your fault. These people are professionals. They know exactly what they're doing. She paused. But most importantly, if it happens to you, report it. Press charges. Testify. Because every person who stays silent makes it easier for the scammer to find their next victim. We have to be willing to face the embarrassment, the shame, the exposure, because that's how we stop them. Emma was doing well. She'd been confused about why Michael had suddenly disappeared, why he'd been a bad person as Sarah had tried to explain in age-appropriate terms. But children are resilient. She'd moved on to new interests, new friends, new routines. One night, as Sarah tucked her into bed, Emma asked, Mama, are you going to date anyone else? Sarah smiled. Maybe someday, baby, but not for a while. Right now, I'm happy with just you and me. Me too, Emma said, hugging her tight. We're a good team. We're the best team, Sarah agreed. And before I close this story, I want to ask you one final question. Was Sarah right to work with the police and trap him? Should she have just reported him immediately and let him run? Or did she do exactly what needed to be done to make sure he faced justice? Drop your honest opinion in the comments below. If this story made you think twice about online dating, about trusting too quickly, about ignoring red flags, then share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel for more true crime revenge stories where the victims fight back and win. Hit that like button if you think justice was served. And remember, if someone seems too perfect, too attentive, too good to be true, they probably are. Trust is earned over time, not given freely because someone says what you want to hear. Sarah Mitchell got her revenge. Marcus Wheeler got 15 years. And 12 other women got to see the man who destroyed their lives finally face consequences. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just making sure the truth comes out and justice gets served. Sarah still listens to true crime podcasts while she folds laundry. But now, when she hears stories about scammers getting away with it, she thinks, not always. Not this time. Not on my watch. Because she proved something important. Victims don't have to stay victims. They can become the ones who fight back. The ones who gather evidence. The ones who testify. The ones who make sure the predator doesn't get to hunt again. And that's a different kind of love story. Not the one Marcus sold her, but the one she built for herself. A story about self-worth, about protection, about refusing to let someone else's cruelty define her future. 3 months after the sentencing, Sarah received a letter. It was from Jennifer, one of the 2019 victims. Sarah, I wanted to thank you. When Marcus stole from me, I felt like my life was over. I blamed myself every day. But watching you testify, seeing you refuse to be ashamed, learning that you'd been brave enough to work with police to catch him, it changed something in me. I stopped blaming myself. I started healing. You gave me that gift. You gave all of us that gift. Thank you for being strong enough to fight back. Sarah folded the letter carefully and put it in a box where she kept important things, reminders of what she'd survived, proof that fighting back had mattered. That night, she made dinner for Emma. They ate together, talked about school, laughed about something silly. Normal life. Safe life. Real life. And somewhere in a federal prison, Marcus Allen Wheeler sat in a cell, his charm useless, his cons over, his victims finally free. Justice isn't always perfect, but sometimes, it's enough.